Hello, good morning. Welcome again to my virtual lessons of biology. First of all, I want to tell you thank you so much because of the feedback that you're sending me related with these lessons. This is something new to me. I have never become a YouTuber or anything like this, and knowing that you're happy and that you're managing nice with the lessons makes me feel really comfortable doing this and very happy because of having this feedback from you. Okay, well done. So today we're gonna have another video related with other group of organisms that we have to study together in this lesson, and then I have prepared another quiz, but it is not going to be a Kahoot in this case. I have discovered a new platform to do these kind of games, and we're going to try today. Let's see, which one do you prefer, Kahoot or this one that I'm going to show you today? Okay, but first of all, let's go to the important thing, which is learning about protozoa in this case. Remember that we are in the second lesson. As always, you know that I like to remember this to you in every video. We have seen monorans. We have started talking about prototists because we studied algae together the other day, and today we're focusing in protozoans. Okay, as you see, it can be protozoans or protozoa without the N. Both of them are correct. Okay, so in this case, they also belong to the Protoctist kingdom, so they share the kingdom with algae, but in this case, they're going to have very specific characteristics, some of them shared with algae, some others not, okay? To start with, protozoans are always, remember this, always unicellular, okay? Single-celled, that's different. Remember, not bacteria, bacteria are also single-celled all the time, but in the case of algae, which is the other group of organisms they share their kingdom with, algae can be single-celled or multicellular. In the case of protozoa, all of them are unicellular. They are eukaryotic. In this case, this is the same as algae, but great difference, they are heterotrophic organisms. So they cannot perform photosynthesis. They're going to obtain their food in different ways that we will see in some minutes. Some of them are free living, so they live in the water or in the soil, but others are parasites. And remember that when we're talking about a parasite, we're always talking about an organism that is going to live inside or over other organism, but causing it a damaging it, okay? So unfortunately, in this group, we're also going to have organisms that cause diseases, and we'll have to talk about that. Nice. So how do they do their vital functions? Well, first of all, let me show you some pictures. Okay, here you have some pictures of protozoans. As you see, all of them unicellular, single cells. Some of them are beautiful when we see them under the microscope. Well, here we just can see a part of two of them. I don't know, this one is a drawing, but this one is a real picture. This is Giardia, which is one of the most typical ones. And the one that I showed you at the beginning, this one, for example, is a Paramecium, which is probably one of the most typical ones. We find this one in every type of water, in every river, every pond, whatever. So they are heterotrophs. They eat bacteria, algae, or other protozoans, okay? So they do that by a process which is called phagocytosis. That means, as you see here, this would be a protozoa, and this would be another protozoa or a bacteria that this one wants to eat. It's not Sunday, it is, let me see, 2:30. I'm hungry. So imagine that this protozoa is hungry, and then it finds this bacteria that he wants to eat. What it is going to do is that it's going to surround this bacteria and finally include it inside the cytoplasm. And in that case, this protozoan would be eating this bacteria and finishing with its hunger. Let's see this in movement. I have selected a video which is not really a protozoan, but it is a white blood cell, the ones that we have in our blood, okay? And these green tiny dots that you see here would be bacteria. White blood cells clean our body in the same way as protozoans eat. They also perform the process of phagocytosis, and you're going to see it very clear in the video. It moves until it finds something that it's going to be eaten. When it detects it, inside the cytoplasm and destroy it. And probably it is going to be trying to find another one, or maybe not, because it is not more, yes, here it goes. You see? So in this case, remember that phagocytosis is a very simple process that both protozoans and our white blood cells can do to engulf para meter dentro de sí mismos these tiny particles or organisms that they consume. Okay? So nutrition, heterotrophic through the process of phagocytosis. In the case of reproduction, they mostly reproduce asexually. Okay, they are very simple organisms. Some of them can have sexual reproduction, but the typical thing is that they are asexual. Okay, and they can do that in two different ways. They can do that by binary fission, which means that from one protozoa it divides into two new protozoa. This we have seen it before because bacteria had this type of asexual reproduction. But they can also have this other type of reproduction, which is called multiple fission, la fission múltiple, which means that from just one protozoa, many of them are produced after this one reproduces. In this case, you have to imagine that parasitic protozoa are going to have this type of reproduction because in that way they can produce many copies of themselves to parasite other cells. You see? So very easy to distinguish the two processes, binary fission, from one protozoa we obtain two, or multiple fission if from one protozoa we obtain many copies. Good. So nutrition heterotrophic, reproduction asexual by these two processes. What happens with interaction? Well, in this case, we're starting to have organisms that move a lot. And the interaction is going to be the key point which we're going to use to classify protozoa. So depending on how they move and how they interact with their environment, we're going to have the classification that we're going to see in some minutes, okay? So keep that there. We will talk about interaction when we arrive to the classification. So vital functions done, okay? Let's see in this case why they are important. Well, in the case of protozoans, their importance is that in the ecosystems, they are going to be the consumers. Remember that algae were producers because they produce oxygen and nutrients for the ecosystem. In the case of protozoans, they cannot do photosynthesis, so they are going to consume sometimes algae, sometimes bacteria, sometimes other protozoa. So they are the consumers. The role that they play in ecosystems is that they are the consumers. Good. Then we humans can use them in wastewater treatment plants. Remember that we studied together that when water is polluted, we have to clean it before returning it to the rivers. And one of the processes that we do is that we use microorganisms, in this case protozoans, to consume this pollution that we have in the water. So we use some species in our wastewater treatment plants to clean organic waste in the water. Okay? And then something which is important as always is that some protozoans can be harmful. They can cause diseases. Okay? So the examples of diseases which are caused by protozoans are very varied. The first one is sleeping sickness, la enfermedad del sueño. And you may say, I think I have that. Don't worry, you don't have that. If you love sleeping, that's something normal. But sleeping sickness is a disease that it is very dangerous because it affects the nervous system, so it can be even mortal. And it's a disease that it is mainly located in Africa, so it is an endemic disease. Remember that term that we also studied together, endemic, just from one place. And it is caused by, let me show you, it is caused by, well, this would be the cycle of the disease, but I wanted to show you, sorry that I haven't looked for it. It is transmitted by a fly, which is called the tsetse fly, la mosca tsetse. Does this mean that the fly is responsible for the disease? Not really. But when this fly bites somebody who has the sleeping sickness and it takes the blood of this person as a mosquito, when it takes the blood of this person who is sick with the disease, with the sleeping sickness, in the blood, the protozoa is going to be traveling. So the fly is going to be filled with this blood, which is polluted by the parasite. When this fly goes away and it arrives to other person who is healthy and it bites this other person, that fly is going to transmit the disease to the healthy person. But remember that the fly is just a vector because the disease is caused by a protozoa which is in the blood that carries this fly. Understood? That's important. So first example, sleeping sickness. Then your book also talks about amoebic dysentery, la dysenteria. Dysentery, it's disease that it's like a strong gastroenteritis, very big, with huge diarrhea, normally releasing blood with the feces. So it is a very, very serious disease as well. We don't suffer it here in Spain because it is normally transmitted by polluted water. And fortunately, we live in a country in which we have, as we were commenting before, wastewater treatments, and our tap water, when we open the tap, it's totally clean and not carrying this type of parasites, okay? Then another one which you have in your book is malaria, which is a very, very common disease. Again, endemic, but endemic of huge areas, tropical areas surrounding all the planet. So in Africa, in Asia, in South America, they suffer from this disease. The way of transmitting the disease, sorry, I hate when this happens. Well, the malaria is caused by a parasite. The parasite is called Plasmodium falciparum, and it infects the cells of the liver, and then from the liver it can also kill the red blood cells in our body. So it destroys the liver, which is a vital organ, and it also destroys our red blood cells. So if we don't have enough red blood cells, we don't have enough oxygen, and we feel super tired and our body cannot work properly. So malaria is also a serious disease. We can treat it, but the sad thing is that this disease normally occurs in countries which don't have proper sanitary systems. So many people die because of it because they don't have access to the treatment, okay? That's the sadness of these cases. It is also transmitted by a mosquito, in this case, just the female of a mosquito which is called Anopheles. And it works exactly the same. When this mosquito bites somebody who is sick with malaria, when it takes the blood of this person who is sick with malaria, the mosquito is going to have the blood with the parasite. If that mosquito, I'm remembering Thyra right now, if that mosquito is going to again to a healthy person and bites this healthy person, as it bites the healthy person, it is going to pass the blood that it was carrying in the belly to the person who is healthy. So in that way, it transmits the disease. That's why in those countries it's super important to protect against those mosquitoes, because they are the ones responsible of transmitting the disease, even though the one causing the disease is the protozoa that travels inside. Good? Nice. Well, then your book also talks about Chagas disease, which is kind of similar, or well, not similar, but the symptoms are kind of, they look alike to sleeping sickness. So with the sleeping sickness, dysentery, and malaria, for me this year, it's okay. Then remember that I told you that when we were going to talk about the interaction function, I told you that we will talk about it by the classification, because we classify protozoans according to how they move, okay? It's not that they can run or anything, but it's true that they move better than bacteria or algae as we have studied until now, okay? So they have different ways of doing it, very easy, you're going to see. We can have a type of protozoans which is called flagellates. Why are they called like this? Because they move using flagella. Okay, this would be the flagella of this parasite, which is the Trypanosoma brucei, the one which is transmitted by the tsetse fly, causing what disease? Sleeping sickness. Remember that. More examples of flagellates would be, here you have another one with one flagella, another one with another flagella. Some of them can have more than one, such as Giardia as well. Okay, another one with one flagella. So remember that they act like a wheel or something like this. It moves, and it moves the protozoa in its environment. So first type, flagellates, moving using flagella. Second type, ciliates. They have cilia surrounding the cell. Cilia are tiny, tiny hairs. Can you see them? Surrounding all the cell. It's like tiny, tiny feet. They move these cilia, and they are able also to move in the environment where they live. Remember that they normally live in aquatic environments. So moving this tiny hair, they can move through the environment in which they live. I want to show you a video. I think it's this one, yes. This is a paramecium, which is the best example of ciliates. And I don't know if you can see it very well, but here you can see how they move the cilia really, really fast if you think about it. This one is not moving because it is under the microscope, so it is probably trapped in the glass slide that we use in the laboratory. But if it was able to move, they will do it kind of fast, okay? Because they move the cilia very, very fast. So, second type, done using cilia, then we call them ciliates. Then we have rhizopods, los rhizópodos. In this case, they move using what we call pseudopods. Pseudopods literally means false feet. En castellano decimos pseudópodos, significa falsos pies. What they do is that they're able to change their shape. It's like they emit prolongations of the cytoplasm in order to move. It's like they emit false feet. Vroom, vroom, vroom. I also looked for a video. In this case, you're going to see an amoeba, which is one of the most typical examples of rhizopods, eating two parameciums, so the ones that we saw before. So it is a rhizopod which is eating two ciliates. You'll see. This is the amoeba, and as you see, it is emitting these prolongations of the cytoplasm, these pseudopods, these false feet, and it is engulfing, está metiendo dentro de su citoplasma these two paramecium, and eventually, with the vacuoles that it has inside, it will dissolve the two paramecium and eat them. Oh, poor them. They have realized what is happening to them. You see? So finally, they are totally destroyed, dissolved, and the amoeba would obtain nutrients from them. So it is not a lion eating a zebra, but it is also a carnivore in this case, one amoeba which is eating, in this case, the two paramecium. Well, I hope you like it. Let's see. So rhizopods, remember rhizopodos, they move using pseudopods. This includes the amoebas that we just saw. This one is not eating, such as the one that we saw before. And then also another type which is I would just want to show you because they look very beautiful. They are called foraminiferos in Spanish. And they look really beautiful because they accumulate shells surrounding them. So even though they are unicellular organisms, they are surrounded by tiny, tiny shells of carbonates. And it is very beautiful to observe them under the microscope because they have beautiful shapes, those shells that they have surrounding them. You see? Very, very beautiful. We use them to, we use them in order to try to guess the age of rocks because we have different species in the different geological periods of our planet. So depending on what type of foraminifera you find in a rock, you would be able to know to what era or period they belong. Okay? And final type, we have seen, remember, flagellates, which move using flagella, such as the one causing the sleeping sickness. Ciliates, which move using cilia, such as paramecium, which is super, super typical. Then rhizopods, having amoeba or foraminifera. And finally, we have sporozoans. These ones are always parasitic and they are immobile. They cannot move, okay? I'm not going to show you a picture of them because they don't really have nothing special, but just remember that, for example, in the case of the protozoa causing malaria, Plasmodium malariensis or Plasmodium falciparum, as you have here, this is the type that they belong to. Okay? Nice, so this is all. We have seen the principal characteristics of protozoans. We have seen how they perform the vital functions. Remember, nutrition, heterotrophics using phagocytosis, reproduction mainly asexual with these two processes, binary fission or multiple fission, and interaction, which is the way they move. That's how we classify them. We just finished with that. And then the importance, well, the role that they play in ecosystems, that we can use them to clean our water, and that they cause some diseases. That's all. So we're done with Productist Kingdom, and the game that we're going to play today, I will explain to you in Edmodo how to play it, is going to be to compare the two principal groups of organisms that we have in the Productist Kingdom, which is algae, remember, from last week, and Protozoa that we just saw today. So be careful, remember to use your full name and surname, okay, to do the quiz, and you will have a couple of days to answer it. It's better and funnier that you play together right now, but I understand that some of you cannot have access to the computer right now. And then, as always, do your notes about this part of the lesson, but I won't ask for them today, okay? I will ask for them later, don't worry. Today, just enjoy the video, learn a lot about Protozoa, take your book, revise a little bit, and do the quiz. Bye!